There are odd cars, there are ridiculous cars, and then at the very top of the pile, there is the 1969 Ford Mustang Mach IV. A drag racing oddity, so deranged it makes a Bugatti Chiron look like a Toyota Camry. Because while Bugatti engineers spent years sweating over cooling systems, aerodynamics and stability at 250 miles per hour, Gary Weckesser, an American trucker and drag racer with a passion for Fords, simply thought, why not take a Mustang and give it 4 engines? And then he actually did it. That's not 4 turbochargers, not 4 carburetors, not even 4 wheels powered independently. No, we're talking about 4 complete Ford 351 cubic inch Windsor V8s, each with its own intake stacks, exhaust pipes and heartbeat. Put together, they produce enough noise to terrify passing aircraft and enough horsepower to melt the rear tires into black fog. The name Mach IV wasn't just a cheeky play on the Mustang Mach I, it was literal, 4 times the madness. But to understand the Mach IV, you need to go back to the 1960s. Drag racing then was not the clinical, stopwatch-driven science experiment it later became. It was theatre. It was about pulling crowds to county fairgrounds and quarter-mile strips by building machines that looked like they had crawled out of a fever dream. Engines were swapped, chopped, stacked and multiplied in pursuit not just of speed but of spectacle. This was the era when Ford Econoline vans were stuffed with V8s in the back and ran on 2 wheels, when candy-colored paint jobs glistened under the floodlights, and when flames out the exhaust weren't a problem, they were a selling point. Gary Weckesser was one of those men who lived and breathed that culture. A long-haul trucker by trade, he had the mechanical skill and the stubbornness required to dream up something utterly absurd and then make it work. His obsession with Fords naturally led him to the Mustang, specifically the 1969 Mach I sports roof. But Weckesser wasn't interested in fitting a bigger carburetor or dropping in a larger displacement block. He went in a totally different direction. The first step was creating a chassis strong enough to hold not 1, not 2, but 4 separate V8s. Each was a 351 cubic inch Windsor unit, as I said before, a workhorse of the Ford range at the time. In the stock form, a single one of these could make around 300 horsepower, 4 of them tuned with fuel injection and wearing individual intake stacks like organ pipes were capable of producing anywhere between 2,000 and 3,000. The engineering question, of course, was how to exactly use that power. Mounting 4 engines in a row and simply hoping they'd behave like one was never gonna work. Instead, Weckesser devised an ingenious network of drive shafts, U-joints and couplings to link all 4 into one single system. Rather than having multiple clutches or chain drives, which was often the crude solution in tractor pulling, the Mach IV channeled everything through one clutch and a custom-built direct drive gearbox. There were no gears in the traditional sense, it was one ratio, full send all the time. You didn't shift the Mach IV, you just held on. And unlike many dragsters of the time, which were little more than fiberglassed caricatures of road cars, the Mach IV still bore a surprising resemblance to the production Mustang. The body was narrowed down the middle to help it slip through the air, but it retained much of the original steel and the factory panels. The end result was this bizarre hybrid, a dragster that still looked recognizably like the Mustang, but with the proportions that made it appear stretched and squeezed at the same time. And then there were the visual cues of insanity. 32 exhaust pipes sprouted from the 4 engines, each belching fire and fury in unison. A quartet of intake stacks rose up like cathedral spires from the engine base. Standing next to it was like standing at the gates of hell, with the organ playing at full blast. With up to 3,000 horsepower on tap, the Mach IV wasn't built for subtlety. On the drag strip, it could cover the quarter mile in under 8 seconds, hitting speeds of around 180 miles per hour. Today, that might not sound extraordinary compared to modern NHRA dragsters that break 330, but in the late 1960s, with technology still very much experimental, it was astonishing. More than the numbers though, it was the experience. The sight of 4 engines firing together, the noise reverberating across the stands, and the sheer theatre of it made the Mach IV unforgettable. It wasn't just a machine, it was a show. Drag racing back then was as much about entertainment as competition, and the Mach IV delivered entertainment by the metric ton. Crowds didn't just see a fast car, they saw a mechanical hydra. 4 engines thrashing together under the Mustang's skin, a car so audacious it made even jet-powered dragsters seem tame. And if you think keeping one V8 powered dragster in a straight line is difficult, try doing it with 4 engines fighting through a single drivetrain. The Mach IV had no transmission ratios to moderate its power, no traction control, and certainly no electronic safety nets. It was brute force, waiting to fling itself down the track the moment the clutch dropped. Ford themselves later described it best, saying, "Driving this beast in a straight line was no small task," which is the understatement of the century. Even for a seasoned drag racer like Weckesser, simply keeping it pointed at the finish line was an achievement. And while other racers experimented with aerodynamics and chassis balance, the Mach IV stability strategy was more basic. Put all the weight in the middle, make it all-wheel drive, and hang on tight. But that brings us to the question, why 4 engines? I mean, today, the idea of using 4 separate engines might seem crazy, but in the 60s it made a strange kind of sense. Turbocharging was still in its infancy, superchargers were common but had limitations, and exotic fuels weren't yet fully exploited. If you wanted more power and didn't have a single engine big enough, the logical, if slightly insane answer was to simply bolt on more engines. The Mach IV wasn't alone in this. There were twin-engine dragsters, tractors, even motorcycles. But 4 V8s in a single car, packaged with enough finesse to actually function, that was something else entirely. But to end this video off, the Mach IV was never going to be a blueprint, or even for professional drag racing. It was too impractical, too wild, and too difficult to tame. But it wasn't meant to be a practical solution, it was meant to be a spectacle, and in that role, this car succeeded brilliantly. But at the end of this video, please let me know what you guys thought of the video, what do you guys think of this insane car, and if you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Now if you guys did enjoy this video, you must enjoy most of my other stuff, so just go through my channel, see if there's someone else to like, I'll check you guys in the next one. Cheers,